Hello, YouTube, and welcome to another Smite video. I am your host today, Mr. Cosmos, and today we'll be talking about the best gods to solo queue carry with by class in Ranked Joust. A highly anticipated video. You guys are always asking me about what's the best god for this? What's the best god for that? If I'm solo queuing, what do I do? If they pick Ares, who do I pick to counter him? Well, today we'll answer some of those questions and not answer others, but we're going to talk about, in order, Assassin, Warrior, Guardian, Mage, Hunter. The top 5 characters that I believe will help you the most when you are attempting to climb the ranks here at the end of the season. Really nice to have a good pool of characters in your pocket for characters to play. So let's get right on into it. The main thing I would say before we get into this is play the characters that you're most comfortable with from this list. If I give you a character that you've thought about playing, I mean, definitely try it out, but probably in a non-ranked setting, and just knowing that it's going to be a really good character, and you can ask me builds and whatnot. That could be a separate video, but we'll get to that later. Assassins will be our first target here. Number one thing about Assassins that you're looking for is consistent damage output and good safety. Those are the main things that you're looking for when you're looking to solo queue carry a game with an assassin. So the best god for that, in my opinion, is Camazotz. A really strong god right now. You guys might, if you check out any higher tier Ranked Joust content, you might be seeing that god getting banned a lot, getting picked a lot. And kind of out of the blue, right? Somebody did something to make that god get picked a lot. I don't know who. Anyone know? Anyway, Camazotz has really consistent damage. He has really good wave clear, and his safety is incredibly strong. He's got a jump, and he's got a way to send himself up into the air where you can't hit him, and he can hit you. So he's very good at killing like any target. His damage is relevant against carries and against tanks in the late game as you get that Heartseeker, Titanbane, Serrated type of deal online. And he's got really insane sustain. So just like a perfect all-around god for like playing for yourself and getting damage out across all priority targets. Very strong. Second on our list is Ne. In higher up lobbies, you see Ne get banned in the first round a lot of the time because he's very obnoxious. Really insanely strong CC, and if you get a nice follow-up mage for his ultimate when he lands, like a Kukulkan, a Ra, a Scylla, stuff like that, can make this god very, very dangerous to play against. But that's more in an organized setting. So instead of being number 1, Ne is number 2. That ring toss is an insufferable ability to play against. That universe ring toss 14-second cooldown goes down with cooldown, of course, and reducing your protections. This ability is so annoying to play against, especially like in a jungle fight. He throws it and it hits your whole team a billion times. Very, very good, but just a little lower on the ranks for me than Camazotz for a solo queue specific perspective, just because they can counter you out a bit easier and you can't really trust your team a lot of the time to follow up. So he's second, but still very strong. Third on our list, we've got Set. This character has been nerfed a bit over the past few patches, hasn't been touched in a little while. Is still incredibly strong. Has really good poke. Wave clear is really, really good. In these solo queue scenarios, if you have a character that can offer a bit to the wave clear, it will make your life so much easier. Because if you're getting out cleared, then they might be out pressuring you, taking your buffs, and when they're taking your blue buff too, they're 4 buffing you, that's when the situation gets real dire. So having a character that can deal damage and clear waves and buffs, really good. Set is very good for that. And his all-in in a disorganized scenario, like when you're solo queuing with and there are a bunch of other solo queuers in your lobby, people are kind of just letting people go wherever they want, and the fights are very disorganized. Set can take advantage of that. Huge with his ultimate. Can wipe a whole team if you don't pay the correct attention to him, because his burst is really, really strong. You cannot ignore this character. Fourth on our list is Thor. Very powerful assassin. Really, really strong in the mid game when he gets some ranks in his Mjolnir's attunement, that first ability. that double tap taking like, 70, 80% sometimes of these enemy hunters and mages health bars does fall off a bit in the late game, especially if they take more of a tank-centered approach to their composition. They got like 2 tanks type of thing. But still, you can build like a Thieves, Bluestone, full damage type of build on Thor and really deal good damage to any target. Not as well as like Camazotz or Set or, the pressure that Naja is able to put out consistently, but Thor's CC, incredibly strong, will offer a lot to his team and really good damage. Offers something to the wave clear like we were talking about. So that gives him the number 4 spot. And then the number 5 spot is a little bit trickier for these assassins. I struggled a bit picking between like Robin, Kleena, Bastet, Tsukuyomi, Hoonbots, but I eventually landed on Ratatoskr because this character is very flexible, can offer a lot to the fight without even needing to have his ult, unlike someone like Hoonbots or like Fenrir, for example. And he's got really good burst that you have to respect. Very good at diving carries. Can go that 5 nut acorn or can go that protection reduction acorn and adjust his build accordingly to be super strong in these solo queue carry scenarios, especially like you first pick Rat and your team's like, oh, an assassin? You're going to build tank. Let me pick a mage and a hunter for you. So if you find yourself on the solo frontline Rat, it'll be a lot nicer than, say, if you were to first pick Pele and your team's like, oh, that's our melee character. Let's go 2 range characters, So Ratatoskr, very, very good. It is notable that I didn't mention characters like Awilix, like Bastet, like Fenrir, like Serket. Those kind of characters can be very, very useful, but I'm talking about like across all your solo queue games, the characters that are going to be most consistent to deal that good damage and have presence in the game at all times, around buffs, around waves, all that stuff. There are some characters that are very good in specific matchups to do specific things, and the top 5 that I just listed there are the most consistent ones that I could think of. So, now moving on to the warrior class. Our top 5, the main things you're looking for from a warrior are pretty similar to an assassin. You're not looking as much for that consistent damage output and ability to kill carries as you are from assassins. You would love to have that, if possible, but you can't always have that because warriors do trade out a bit of their damage to have a bit more tankiness, just as a facet of the class, right? So we are looking for that consistent damage if we can find it, and really good harass onto carries, and if you're able to kill a tank too, fantastic. But mainly, you're looking to be a really big meat shield, right? And just bash people around. So the best warrior for that right now would be number 1, Achilles. Who would have seen that coming? Now, this god gets banned a lot, has really consistent damage output using that combat dodge, that third ability, 10-second base cooldown. Real nice. In addition to all these heals from his second ability, Radiant Glory, and gets that 10% extra phys power, and more importantly, that 20% protection when you level that guy up. This character is one of the only warriors in the game that actually feels tanky in the late game, in my opinion. And still, even then, if you get an Anhur on you with a chin size, you're not feeling good late game. But he is one of, if not the tankiest warrior in the class. Very, very, very good with that consistent damage and has the ability to kill a tank with his ultimate. His only shortcoming kind of is that his CC is very low and like his chase down against carries isn't that great. So like if you pick Achilles and want to go like a double frontline comp and they pick really safe characters that are able to kite really well, like a Thoth or like a Vulcan, like an Anhur, can make your life a bit tougher. But overall, because his poke is so consistent so often, and he's got that execute ability to kill tanks too, Achilles nets the number 1 spot on our list for warriors. Number 2, following a similar line, we've got Hercules. Really solid solo queue god because he starts the game super strong from level 3, using that strength from pain passive, giving him that bonus physical power per stack, 4 + 1 per level. That's what? At level 20, that's 24 times 3, 72? That's a whole lot of power. And level 3, this guy gets what? 5 times 3, 15 power? That's like a whole... I was about to say Warrior's Axe, but Warrior's Axe has 20 power now. That's like a whole sigil extra power over another character that doesn't get a power passive. So that guy hits really darn hard early game. And if you're able to win early game hard in a solo queue game, can put the... What's the word for this? The mentalities of your teammates in a very good spot to move on into the rest of the game. I'm sure if you guys have solo queued, you've had plenty of teammates that are like, oh, we got first blooded, leaving the game. Or, oh, we got first blooded, game over, good game, you rock, cancel that, you know? Hercules is pretty good at avoiding those scenarios. Very good in that early and very relevant in the late. Super, super good CC if your team forces you to play solo frontline, like we're talking about, like if you first pick Achilles, you first pick Hercules. Sometimes your team's like, oh, we have our tank, let's play carry characters. If they do that, then Hercules will be just fine for a scenario like that, because he can be built very tanky and be very slippery. Not bad as a solo frontline, though. Obviously, you don't really want to be. But if you can't have to be, you can. And so his relevant damage, good CC, and ability to help you out a lot in the early game and play into the rest of the game with your team in a good mental space is going to put Hercules second on our list. Third on our list, we have Shiva. Shiva, similar to Hercules, very strong early game and really, really good CC, which is very similar to Hercules. Really solid displacement, can make it very easy for your carries to play. It's a little tougher to follow up of Shiva CC, but having 2 knockups being the best CC in the game, we talk about a lot of the time, because knockups cannot be affected by diminishing returns. We'll always get that full duration knockup. Shiva can be very, very effective for disrupting carries or just disrupting a fight in general. Has good early presence like Hercules. Doesn't have 15 extra power at level 3, but does have those 2 knockups and good fight swinging potential with the extra attack speed he's able to give to his teammates, and get block stacks and get movement speed. Just solid character, honestly, and can go into the late game. Feels a little bit weaker because when you get into that Shiva Tandava, that ultimate, and they just hit you, can be real tough. They hit you with an Ankh, can be real tough. Warrior class, not as great in the late game, but Shiva definitely strong early and can offer a lot to your team. 100% consider this guy when you are solo queuing. Good damage against carries, good disruption. Fourth on our list for the solo queue carrying with a warrior, I have Nike. This character hasn't been the most popular over the course of Smite history, especially Joust history, but I find to be incredibly strong right now. They need very designated counters to stop your one consistently, to shut down your shield consistently, like Ganesh type of counters to really control you. And if they don't have that, like they pick Thoth, Hachiman, very likely comp, right? And they pick even like something like a Bacchus, which is going to take a while to CC a Nike. Like, Nike could do a whole lot of work on that backline, and Bacchus cannot stop her that well because she's got the 2 knockup immunities. That burp is very telegraphed, so she could be able to get on a comp like that super easy. And that's a good comp, right? Like, if you think Thoth, Hachiman, Bacchus, not a lot of characters want to play against that comp. But Nike is completely fine against something like that. So her burst is just very, very good. Her damage is very relevant. You go a build like, oh, hey, I have the build right here. You go like Warrior's Axe. I wouldn't go Glad Shield. Wait, what's my first item? I've been going damage on her. You'll go a build like a little bit of damage in the start of it with like a Jotun's Vigor here into like a Manticore Spike, and you are pumping. Absolutely destroying the opponents. You got Arc Druid procs, you get Glad Shield procs later in there. Got a good bit of tankiness and sustain. Nike can do a whole lot of work if you don't have the proper tools to stop her. And in a solo queue scenario, you can find yourself in that position. So definitely mess around with some Nike if you haven't been. Very easy god to play. Pretty noob friendly, though does have a lot of things that you can do with her as you gain more experience that will make her a lot more fun and enjoyable. So 5th on our list now for the Warriors. To round it out, we have our good friend, the Fire Giant, Surtr. This is one of the few characters, few warriors in Smite that can actually kill a carry late game, like consistently, because his burst is very, very strong with this Flames of Muspel ability, the one that gives him a little self buff to his sword, and he whacks you, and it does a little bit of burst, and then does ticking damage to you. Very low cooldown, and if you're stacking this guy up, you can get 200 stacks on this guy. How it works is you activate your one, you apply it to like a minion or a jungle camp or a fire giant or something like that, and if that thing dies within 3 seconds of you hitting it, then you will gain 1 out of 200 of your stacks, and every stack you have, your ability will deal 5 extra damage. And that thing can stack 200 times. You can get 1,000 extra damage on Surtr 1. Very unlikely that you will, but by the end of the game, having like anywhere from like, I'd say 40 to 70 stacks is pretty regular for maybe like a 20 minute game. Probably good. So that's an extra like what, 200 or so damage, 200 plus damage on one ability that's on a 10-second base cooldown, which with 40% cooldown, we're looking at 6-second cooldown. And the second you activate it, it comes off or it goes on cooldown, so you can activate it early, and then you can like blink in with it on the 4th out of 5 seconds, and then have it back in 2 more seconds. That's a whole lot of damage. He's also one of the only warriors that has a really easily accessible long-range stun. When you think about long-range stuns on warriors, what are we looking at? Bellona ult? Achilles blink 1? Hercules 1? Horus 2? Surtr 2 goes much farther than a lot of those and is a non-ultimate ability, so you can play very, very well off of a Surtr 2 and get a lot of burst off that. Very good. Odin 3. Yeah, Odin 3. You got to wind that guy up, though. Surtr just whips it out and goes... It's kind of an annoying targeter, hard to land around walls, but if you can figure out this Surtr character, you can do a whole lot of work. He's also very, very good early game because of his passive. Unlike Hercules, who gains power, Surtr gains protections when he picks up this passive. It also gives him a ticking heal. So in an early game fight, Surtr is very, very strong. And remember what we were talking about with the whole, if you can do well in the early game, your solo queue games could go a lot better because there are people that just like give up or like really decide in their brain how the game is going to go just based off of early momentum. Surtr's pretty good about maintaining that momentum or gaining that momentum in the early game and leading to the later stages of the game just because he's so good early. So picking gods that are good early is a good strategy for these solo queue games, and then, if they're good early and mid and late, then even better. So Surtr kind of caps off our list. For the warriors here, it is quite honorably mentionable, though. You may have noticed I didn't mention characters like Bellona or Erlang Shen in this list. I actually think that those two characters are better than all the ones I just listed for solo queue carrying a game, but you need a very particular play style and build style to make them effective, where you work like a chin size into the build, heck, Atalantis for like Erlang Shen, Eye of the Jungle type of deal, and it's just like not the typical warrior style. So objectively, I would say Erlang and Bellona are better actually than all 5 of the warriors we just named, but overall, for the majority of the Smite player base, I would say the list that we just gave of the top 5 warriors, where you're going for an actual like warrior-based playstyle with warrior items, those top 5 that we just went with are good warriors. Bellona and Erlang, a little bit different. So if you have seen the Erlang and Bellona stuff, definitely you know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, check it out. Okay, moving on, we have the Guardian class. So with the Guardian class, pairing as a Guardian, a little weird. If we're talking about Conquest, but we're talking about Joust. And Joust, you can stay very even in XP, very even in gold to your carries, or to your fellow tanks in some cases. And do a whole lot as a Guardian. Because you're able to stay even, characters like Kuzenbo, characters like Bacchus, characters like Kabrakan, who will really, really struggle if they're behind a bit in level and XP, become a lot stronger. Also, there are only 3 people on each team, so there are a lot less people to kill them, and having innate tankiness will make them much more effective in the Joust game mode. But as far as solo queue carrying as these characters, there's going to be a top 5 following a similar vein to the other classes we've listed so far. You want presence early, you want presence often, good in fights, and for Guardian specifically, good CC will help a lot, or some kind of tank shred or ability to kill multiple types of targets. So ability to kill carries and tanks. Going to be a little bit trickier to fit that bill as a Guardian versus like an Assassin or an Achilles, but we're going to list out the top 5 for you to do the best things you can do as a Guardian to carry a game. Number 1 is Kuzenbo. Who would have thought? Incredibly strong Guardian, insanely tanky, gets banned almost every freaking game for that reason. But if you can get him on your team, the only weakness you have is you run out of mana all the time. So Kuzenbo will do damage very often with his shell spikes, allowing him to get those cooldown resets on his 1 and his 3. Is incredibly obnoxious to go against as a carry. Has so much CC, and that 75-second ult cooldown just makes him a real thorn in your side as any carry character. Even as a Guardian, this guy can push you around, but the thing that Kuzenbo really, really is good at is being incredibly annoying to your backline. So if you play Kuzenbo in solo queue, go Blink, go stuff like Thorns, go Horrific Emblem, just anything that will terrorize the enemy backline, and you just run it down at them. Kuzenbo, he sees a Mage on the other team, and he destroys them. So that's what you're looking for as Kuzenbo. He's just the best at it. He has the cooldowns the most often. No other Guardian has a cooldown reset except for now Bacchus Kujira. Fun. That guy will be good, but we won't be talking about him because he's not available in Ranked. So Kuzenbo is your number 1 Guardian for solo queue carrying Ranked games because he has that early presence, he's got the CC, and he does it all the time. 2. Atlas. Atlas is one of the few Guardians in the game that actually clears the wave. Pretty fantastic. So we're talking about that, solo queue advantage. If you have that early presence, then it can make your game a lot easier since, you'll be able to get some pressure on waves, which leads to pressure on buffs, which leads to you getting a lead, which leads to you having a better chance in the game because you're ahead. Atlas is going to help you a lot with that. Has really solid damage. Without building damage, you can build a lot of damage on this guy because he plays from range. Incredible CC. His passive is crazy CC and damage. Like that big boom, that big auto that gives the tremble. So nice for the Atlas. He's got, multiple different ways to pull you. He's got multiple ways to slow you. And he's got the ultimate, which is so amazing. Protection Shred, Power Shred, allows you to be able to kill tanks as well as, you have the abilities to reach carries from a long distance. For a long time, I would actually play Atlas when the enemy would first pick Thoth in my solo queue games, because you can actually kind of match his range, and if you build a little bit of damage, you can actually kind of like outpoke the Thoth as Atlas, which is weird to say, but because you're tankier and you have similar range, you can actually reach him when he's trying to poke you out. So, and you hitting him will do a lot more damage than him hitting you. So Atlas very, very good, and his 1 goes down to 10-second base. So this character, he just does a whole lot, and my favorite thing about Atlas is he makes the tanks squishy. So if you pick like a double backline comp with him, and they pick like a really beefy front line like a Cabrakan and Achilles, pretty beefy front line, right? Atlas can make those guys very killable using his ult. Throw a bracer on top, maybe a frenzy. Heck, maybe you get a Sunder in there somewhere. Atlas can do a whole lot for shredding there. So you can play the game in multiple different ways. Unlike Kuzenbo, who's always hunting the backline, Atlas you can build to either kill the backline or the front line. So really, really strong character. Consider him in your solo queue games. 3rd on our list of Guardians to carry in solo queue games would be the Boatman. So this guy is pretty god-awful for protecting your teammates because he's protection through aggression. You have a little silence. You've got a very nice fear. That's pretty short. And then you've got his second ability, Damnation, which is your peel ability by shielding. So in terms of being an actual Guardian, pretty awful. in terms of carrying your team because you deal good damage and are really annoying to their carries and you can play from range, really good. So we love Charon. When you're really thinking that you're going to be the guy that carries your team, like you load into the lobby, you're the top MMR, your teammates select the mage and hunter roles, and you're thinking to yourself, how do I make sure I can play a tank, but also be able to deal good damage and also stay safe on my own by playing a ranged character? Charon. That is one of the things that comes to mind because he's got good damage. His early game is all right. It's all right around waves, I should say. His fight is very good for himself. Very selfish character. But Charon will deal good damage, really solid damage. This is one of the few Guardians you can actually build full damage, and he actually feels, I would say, the best out of all of them. Like Charon and Atlas, if you build Wrongdo's Mask, full pen type of thing, feel pretty good. But from a just like straight up solo queue Guardian point of view, Charon is going to be one of those few Guardians that's actually able to deal enough damage on his own to kind of like keep a carry at bay and really good poke and maybe even solo them out sometimes. So that's what's going to put Charon on the third slot of our Guardian solo queue carry gods. Fourth slot here, we've got our good friend, the Doggle Man Cerberus. So one thing that sets Cerberus apart from these other Guardians is he's able to kill carries. And you may notice that's kind of a running trend here. Kuzenbo really good at killing carries. Atlas can kill carries, can play from range. Charon can kill carries, play from range, good poke. Cerberus is going to follow a similar vein here. The main thing he's got is Ghastly Breath. Massive protection reduction. And his 1-2 combo is just so brutally good. At max rank, he's got a 1.8 second stun on this guy on an 11-second cooldown. So Cerberus, kind of like a Guan Yu, if you let this guy get his 2 all the way off, or, you know, in comparison to like a Guan Yu getting his 3 all the way off, you're in for a lot of pain when he hits you with the spit. So this character does an obscene amount of damage when left unchecked, and it's going to put him on the number 4 slot here. You know, also allows you to play both sides of the fight. Like you can kill carries and you can kill tanks because you can soften them up for your carries. You could play like Cerberus Guan Yu if you're, you know, if once you get into maybe a non-solo queue position, you get a big shred comp with Cerb Guan Yu. Can be a lot of fun. So yeah, Cerberus, just really good damage, can kill a carry, puts him fourth on the list. Not the best at it, but that's why we have Kuzenbo, Atlas, and Charon above him. Fifth on the list, rounding us out for the Guardians here, in terms of solo queue carrying, is going to be Bacchus. Bacchus. So Bacchus is kind of like Kuzenbo before Kuzenbo was released. Very, very tanky guy. Good CC, but doesn't do it as often as Kuzenbo because Bacchus forgot to bring his shell spikes. So, really good CC. Can kill a carry on his own. Really annoying for a character like Thoth to play against. Pretty good against like Morgan Le Fay type of deals. Like, just a good character at killing carries, really, when he's able to stay even with them. So, good damage. Good CC. Bacchus good. Better than these other characters at killing people while also staying safe. Like a lot of these other dudes, they've got like either really good CC or like good ways of protecting their teammates. And that's not what we're looking for in a solo queue carrying specifically. If you're loaded into a lobby solo queue and you see 2 people that you recognize, you trust, then you can play Athena, you can play Ganesh. Those are great gods for non-solo queue or like you trust your teammates. But from a solo queue carry perspective, we're looking to kill the enemy carries. And those top 5 we just listed, rounded up by Bacchus, are going to be very, very good for doing so. Honorable mention, not a Guardian, but honestly is better at playing the Guardian role than a lot of these Guardians. Specifically, like it would be above Bacchus if I were to put it on this list, is Baron Samedi. If you've been watching the YouTube, you may have noticed that I'd be building the Baron quite tanky. And do I have a Ranked Joust in here? Oh, that's not a good example, but building like, you know, Thebes with Eldritch Dagger, Spirit Robe, getting a Bracer Abuse type of Baron with a Talisman of Energy is a really effective strategy on Baron, building him mainly tanky. can make this god very, very strong in the support role. Won't make it onto this list because we are doing specifically Guardian class list. But if you are looking for carry characters from the support role, Baron is definitely a character you should consider. Moving on, perfect segue into the Mage class, as we're just talking about Baron Samedi. There are a whole lot of really good mages to play solo queue. If you are a mage player and you don't have a good team, or you don't have a team at all, you're in the right spot playing Joust, because a whole lot of these guys are real darn good. We're going to choose the best 5 for you to solo queue carry your games. First one, pretty uncontested, Thoth. Long range, in disorganized gameplay, where he's not getting punished appropriately, you're going to find so much value with those long-ranged hieroglyphic assaults and the final judgments that hit for 2,000 in the late game. Really good wave pressure, which we talked about. If you can keep your team's mental in check early on, you can do a whole lot of things in the solo queue Ranked Joust, and you just don't beat his poke. He outranges you all the time. In a, disorganized solo queue meta, where people want to play carry characters mainly, Thoth is going to reign king above all of those carries and be able to output a whole lot of pressure while being able to play from so far back. He's just the best at it. He really is. Second, just behind Thoth, just a step behind him, but pinky toes width behind Thoth, is Morgan Le Fay. Is going to be able to do very similar things to Thoth from similar but slightly closer range, but she's going to be able to be moving 24% faster while she's doing it, and she's going to be CCing you up the wazoo while she's doing it. Has CC immunity, unlike Thoth, and she's kind of like the magical Anhur, I think is a term that I've heard tossed around, because she's able to self-peel for herself so well. But unlike Anhur, she's got really gosh darn good poke without having to erect a pillar. So Morgan, incredibly strong solo queue god, because she's just so versatile in the things that she can do. And her damage, even starting out from level 3, is just oppressive, man. Using that clone early on, and then having 3 damaging abilities that you're happy just throwing out there onto the wave, onto the buffs, out for poke, like, just makes this character so strong. And just the fact that she's able to move 24% faster while doing it just makes her just an amazing solo queue pick. Followed up, not too far behind Morgan Le Fay, in our third spot is Baba Yaga, who is kind of like a slightly lesser range Thoth that's not moving 24% faster, but she just does so much damage all the time and is a bit unpredictable with her ones. And her ult, especially her ult, more than the 2 mages we listed before, her ult is so obnoxious to play against as a tank. Because it don't matter who you are. You could be Achilles, you could be Kuzenbo, you could be the tankiest god in the game, you could have 50% damage mitigation. Baba ult is going to take half your health while you're walking away from her. It's so annoying how good this ultimate is. she has so much damage. Every ability does damage. She's got 2 uses of one of these abilities, and it's on 10-second and 12-second cooldowns. So Baba Yaga just able to output immense pressure starting from an early stage, and her damage is always relevant. She can build Cloak. She can stack Book of Thoth because of her passive. Just makes her a very great god overall to play, and will work out for you very nicely solo queue because you can play your distance and have really good burst from afar. Not as much as Morgan and Thoth, but very similar, with slightly less safety, which is kind of made up for by having Cloak. So, yeah, Baba's very good. Number 4 on our list is going to be a god that follows, who would have thought, a very similar path to the rest of them, Vulcan. This god very, arguably could be above Baba and Morgan, even Thoth in some scenarios. But, the main reason I'm putting him lower down on the list here is because those other ones above him are a bit easier for them to poke him out. Because his range is good, but it's not as high as his counterparts. The one thing that sets him apart from them is how often he's able to use his abilities. So Vulcan's 1, a 6-second base cooldown at max rank. The disadvantage is he has to get a little bit closer to land that guy, and it's a little bit harder to land too, but that's the main disadvantage. His meatball, 10-second cooldown, so we got a 6-second, a 10-second, and a 10-second. And then an ult that scales down from 90 to 70. Vulcan's very good. Does a lot of damage all the time, and has movement speed passive when he's able to hit people. So he can do that kind of Morgan Le Fay thing. He can't do it from quite as far a distance and doesn't have quite as much CC as Morgan Le Fay, but he has an Inferno Cannon that will be hitting your enemy carries for like 400 later on in the game. Heck, even like earlier on in the game against a tank, this thing's hitting for 100 plus. It is so annoying to play against when you don't have a really consistent way of killing this thing. So, Vulcan, an incredibly strong solo queue mage to play when you're trying to carry in your games. And our final character, number 5. This one took me a bit of thinking to get down because not many of these mages compare. It was kind of like a three-way decision for me between Persephone, Kukulkan, and Ix Chel. And specifically from a solo queue point of view, I ended up going for Kukulkan. Really strong mage right now, Kukulkan. Incredibly safe. Survives meta things like Camazotz really well because of that 4-second slow immunity. Clears the wave for free, so helps out with that solo queue problem of guys, they're clearing the waves, now they're stealing our buffs, now we're behind, now we're losing, I hate everything, we got first blooded, I give up, I'm DCing, you know? So Kukulkan's pretty good at staying safe, playing for himself, has really good poke. You get his 3 to rank 3, it can clear the wave very effectively, and then you level the 1. And you just play from that 70 unit distance, and you just slap people with that over and over and over again. Get Polynomicon somewhere in there. You're living your best life as like a Kukulkan. He's a Mirrodin mage, which are incredibly strong mages right now. And you'll be able to stay safe, play your own game as a solo queuer, living your best life, dealing good damage. Perfect! Doesn't have quite the same CC as the guys above him. Doesn't do it as often as the guys above him, but able to stay safe and apply damage. That's what you're looking for from your mage. Fantastic. Okay, moving on to everyone's favorite class, the Hunter role. So these guys are going to be a bit trickier to pull off in the solo queue because they can be so team reliant. They just, hunters they're just those needy little brats in the back that they want everything. They want your get shields, they want your shells, they want your peel, they want you to dive the back line because they can handle the front line. They just, they're babies. They are. Hunters and hunter players. Sorry, I hate to say it. Okay, number 1, Hachiman. He's just, hands down, the best hunter in the game right now. His range, so good. He can clear or offer clear from afar, has those long-range autos, mana passive. He's just so good, this guy. I love Hachiman. Such a fun character. The safety, the CC immunity, the good clear. Everything. Ticks every box. Can play for himself in terms of surviving dive, and has multiple ways to do it, while also being able to play aggressive. So, you just don't beat Hachiman, man. He does too much damage from afar with too good sustain. What else is there to say? What else do you want, man? Okay, moving on. Number 2 on the list is Xbalanque. Does arguably more damage than Hachiman, actually. The difference is he can't do it from the same range as often as Hachiman can with those Eagle Eye autos. He can throw ranged autos with his ultimate, but he's got some major weaknesses in that has no hard CC, and his wave clear is atrocious. So remember that thing we were talking about where if you lose the early game too hard, like the waves get cleared first, which turns into buffs getting cleared, which turns into first bloods, which turns into your teams leaving the game, or teammates leaving the game. When you play X-Ball, it's a lot harder to control that, because you might kill one melee minion in the time that it takes Kukulkan to clear the whole wave. So, early on. So it takes a little while to ramp up as the X-Ball, but his damage is so immaculate, and his ult offering so much to the team fight. Like if they're using abilities or you're using abilities and they're not because they don't know where they're going, it gives you such a big advantage. And his just damage overall is just so good, especially in these solo queue games where people aren't properly playing that early game to pressure you out because your clear is so bad. You can get a lot of value off this X-Ball going into the mid and into the late game, which can eclipse even the Hachiman in terms of the damage you're able to output. But because he's not as safe and the wave clear is not as great as Hachiman, I do have him a peg lower. He does have a CC immune dash, which is kind of like a combination of a Hachi dash and a Hachi ult, because he's able to move faster and get CC immunity, right, while dashing. He doesn't have that second tool that Hachiman has, though. Hachiman has the dash, and he's got the CC immunity. X-Val puts both in one, which is a little bit of a waste, but he has that OP ult, right? So another big thing is he struggles with mana, unlike Hachiman, so it's just a little bit tougher as X-Ball. I actually like putting 3 points in the poison darts and then leveling his 1, because that's what really makes you do more damage, is branching bolas, giving you 50 extra damage a shot. That combined with your hunter passive, gaining bonus increased damage scaling on their basic attacks, makes this guy hit like a freaking truck. And that's why he feels like he hits so hard this season, is because of that hunter passive. So, yeah, X-Ball, number 2. Number 3, we've got a character that does a lot of damage, yet again. Who would have thought? With these hunters, you're looking for that consistent damage from range, safety, able to protect themselves. So Hachiman, kind of the pinnacle of that. X-Ball, also very good, but does, as we said, has very significant weaknesses. Third, following that line of thought, is Anhur. Has very good self-protection abilities. His wave clears okay. He has to walk up in front of the wave to get that whole thing off, unlike Hachiman, who just goes right there. Boom, wave clear. Anhur, sometimes they're not able to walk up in melee range because there's a Merlin too right there. But yeah, has okay clear, really solid early, and I like to talk about how Anhur's very effective in the blood circle around him. So Anhur's very, very good at controlling a very designated space around his character. He doesn't have a whole ton of range. He's got that ultimate, which hits really hard early and is kind of negligible late. He can kind of close gap using his pillar, right? But that's more so when they're running away from you and you need to catch up to them. When you're getting pelted by Thoth 1s and Morgan Le Fay 3s and other long-range mage abilities, you just kind of have to let it happen and back up so that they can't hit you, right? Unlike Hachiman, who's going to be firing back, right? So that makes Anhur a little bit less priority in scenarios like that. So in like a double backline versus double backline, it can be a lot harder for Anhur to get his stuff out. But in a solo queue carry scenario, where people are just running it down, and you're also running it down, Anhur is so good at just winning those fights. He's got the pillar for an amazing slow. The impale is such a great 1v1 ability. He's got a good escape that can also knock up. And that ult is so useful early. So Anhur incredibly, incredibly strong in those solo queue carrying scenarios. Fourth on our list, Hou Yi does a very similar thing to Anhur, but only to one person. So Ricochet, okay wave clear, doesn't hit very hard, right? He can get those nice fatty ricochets that can be kind of like nice and cheesy early on, bounce him around off the edge of the blue buff wall type of thing across the tower line and, take half somebody's health or catch somebody slipping trying to run away and you hit him with that nice little bank shot around the tower, smacks him for a quick 300 and finishes him off. Nice flashy stuff you can do, a lot of fun things you can do with the ricochet, but those require you to have pressure. Hou Yi is not a god who gets pressure on his own. So from a solo queue carrying point of view, a little bit tougher to find yourself in a scenario where you just get to freehand those ricochets and get a lot of really good poke. He does have good buff clear because of the ricochet, so that's something to take into account. And more than anything, he's good at killing tanks. He's good at killing tanks, and he's good at surviving them. So Hou Yi, very, very strong in the late game, able to mark people and just like focus down one target. So if like people are playing like double backline and a Kukulkan runs it down at you, and you're able to CC him with like a Baron Somni, for example, suck him in, Hou Yi combo him, triple bounce, boom, dead. Hou Yi, unparalleled in a scenario like that. But similar to Anhur, his range is very limited. Anhur has to ult to find that range. Hou Yi can use ricochets to find that range, which, you know, is a lot better. But you're not out trading the Thoth one. You're not out trading, you know, these long range mages. They're so annoying. You're not Hachiman. If you're not Ishtar, you're not doing anything there. So that's why Hou Yi's number 4. And number 5, we've got, from a solo queue point of view, this one is a little bit up in the air. I was thinking about Charon. I was thinking about Medusa. I was thinking about there was another one. Who was it? Like maybe even like Kernanos or AMC even. But the one we ended up going with was Ullr. Because in a disorganized state of gameplay, which these solo queue games most often end up being, a god like Ullr, the crit build like this, can very much one-shot you. With this build, you'll be able to kill tanks, because you'll have enough attack speed to do it. You'll be critting for very large numbers. Carries will be taking 800 damage, 1k damage later on from your Hydra's Deathbringer crits. Ullr can be very, very effective if you can get a little bit of a lead on him. His early pressure is decent. He has good abilities that can clear the wave from afar, right? Kind of like Hachiman does, but Ullr has 2 of them. And the issue he has is he runs out of mana a lot. His most recent buff, his ultimate, where he switched like the passives on his ult and his 2, where his ult now gives 20 power at rank 5. Upgrade this ult at level 5. And it's kind of like you just gained a red buff. It's very, very good. It's like you built 2 T2 Transcendences. Because this gives 20 power. It's like you just got 1,200 gold. For free. It's fantastic. Ullr feels very, very strong when you hit that level 5 margin. And if you can utilize that early game presence to get a lot of poke onto the enemy carries, Ullr can do a whole lot in these solo queue games, and he's so mobile. When we think of characters that are able to protect themselves, we think of Anhur, we think of Hou Yi, and we think of Ullr. When there is little to no peel being offered from your side, like say your Guardian player doesn't trust you enough, and he ended up going Charon, that's not very good peel. So if you wanted to play a hunter and you didn't feel like playing Anhur or Hou Yi, Ullr is a fine character to go. Like, you know, Hachiman got banned. You can go Ullr because he's got good protection for himself because of his insane mobility, and he's got that long range stun, which not a lot of hunters have. And he's got so much versatility throughout the kit entirely. Ullr can 100% carry a game for you in these solo queue games. And with that, we conclude our top 5 characters to solo queue carry with by class video. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. Some big takeaways to note were when you're looking to solo queue carry, you're looking for early presence, ability to clear a wave, good buff clear. You're always looking for that, and no matter what Joust game you're looking or playing in, whether it's 3v3 GM or 1v5 bronze, that's what you're looking for. If you can control the map, control the waves, fantastic. If you got great poke, the fight's a lot easier for you because you have jump, you have ult like Camazotz. Makes the game a lot nicer to play. And so you're just looking to make the game nicer to play for yourself and for your team, and that's what this video has been. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you did, and subscribe for more. And I will see you in the next one.